The drama and complexity of Ireland's partition cannot be fully appreciated without understanding the deep-rooted historical and cultural forces that have shaped the island's identity. The roots of the conflict can be traced back centuries, to a time when the island was firmly under the grip of the British Empire. For generations, the Irish people had chafed under the yoke of British rule, resenting the imposition of foreign customs, language, and religion. The Irish, fiercely proud of their Celtic heritage and traditions, had long dreamed of self-governance and independence. This sentiment only grew stronger as the winds of change swept across Europe in the 19th and early 20th centuries, fueling the rise of nationalist movements throughout the continent. The push for Irish home rule, which gained momentum in the late 1800s, was a manifestation of this growing desire for autonomy. Led by figures like Charles Stewart Parnell and John Redmond, the Home Rule movement sought to establish a degree of self-government for Ireland within the United Kingdom. This proposal, however, was met with fierce opposition from the Protestant Unionist population in the northern parts of the island, who feared that Home Rule would ultimately lead to the complete independence of Ireland. The Protestant Unionists, who had a strong economic and political presence in the industrial heartland of the North, were deeply committed to maintaining the union between Ireland and the United Kingdom. They saw the push for Home Rule as a threat to their way of life, their economic interests, and their political power. This divide between the Unionists and the predominantly Catholic and nationalist-leaning population in the South laid the foundation for the eventual partition of the island. As the push for Home Rule gained momentum, tensions between the two communities escalated, with the threat of civil war looming large. It was against this backdrop of growing unrest that the pivotal events of the early 20th century unfolded, setting the stage for the partition of Ireland. The outbreak of World War I in 1914 temporarily put the Home Rule debate on hold as Ireland's attention turned to the global conflict. But the war would ultimately prove to be a catalyst for the chain of events that would lead to the division of the island. The Easter Rising of 1916, a bold and audacious rebellion against British rule, marked a turning point in the struggle for Irish independence. Though the uprising was swiftly crushed, the execution of the rebel leaders transformed them into martyrs, further fueling the nationalist cause. In the aftermath of the Easter Rising, the political landscape in Ireland shifted dramatically. The moderate Home Rule movement was eclipsed by the more radical Irish Republican Army IRA, which sought complete independence from the United Kingdom. The IRA's campaign of guerrilla warfare against the British forces, known as the Irish War of Independence, lasted from 1919 to 1921 and ultimately led to the negotiation of the Anglo-Irish Treaty. The treaty, signed in 1921, provided for the creation of the Irish Free State, a self-governing dominion within the British Empire. However, the agreement also included a contentious provision that allowed the 6 predominantly Protestant counties in the northern part of the island to opt out of the new Irish state and remain part of the United Kingdom. This division, intended to be a temporary compromise, would ultimately become the lasting legacy of the Irish partition. The 6 counties that opted to remain in the United Kingdom would eventually become known as Northern Ireland, while the remaining 26 counties would form the Irish Free State, which would later become the Republic of Ireland. The formation of Northern Ireland, with its Protestant Unionist majority and close ties to the United Kingdom, exacerbated the tensions between the two communities. The Catholic and nationalist-leaning population in the North felt marginalized and oppressed, leading to the emergence of a new generation of Republican activists who were determined to fight for a united Ireland. The period between the 1920s and the 1960s was marked by a tense and often volatile relationship between Northern Ireland and the newly formed Irish Free State, later the Republic of Ireland. The Unionist government in Northern Ireland, led by figures like James Craig and Lord Craigavon, sought to consolidate its power and maintain its position within the United Kingdom, often at the expense of the Catholic minority. This, in turn, fueled a growing sense of resentment and disenfranchisement among the Catholic community, who felt that their rights and freedoms were being systematically denied. The discrimination and inequality they faced in areas like employment, housing, and political representation only served to deepen the divide between the two communities. The tensions boiled over in the late 1960s as the civil rights movement in Northern Ireland, inspired by the events in the United States, gained momentum. The peaceful protests and marches organized by groups like the Northern Ireland Civil Rights Association NICRA were met with a brutal crackdown by the Royal Ulster Constabulary RUC, Northern Ireland's police force, which was dominated by Unionists. The events of the late 1960s and early 1970s, which became known as the Troubles, marked the beginning of a prolonged and bloody conflict that would come to define the relationship between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland for decades to come. The IRA, reinvigorated by the growing sense of injustice and oppression, launched a campaign of guerrilla warfare against the British forces and the Unionist government in Northern Ireland. The Troubles, which lasted until the late 1990s, were characterized by a cycle of violence, retaliation, and political upheaval that claimed the lives of thousands of people on both sides of the conflict. The British government's attempts to quell the unrest, including the deployment of British troops and the implementation of controversial policies like internment without trial, only served to further inflame the situation. Throughout this tumultuous period, the relationship between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland remained tense and fraught with mistrust. The two states, while geographically close, were increasingly divided by their political and ideological differences, with the Republic of Ireland advocating for a united, independent Ireland and Northern Ireland steadfastly clinging to its ties with the United Kingdom. The Good Friday Agreement of 1998, which brought an end to the Troubles and established a power-sharing government in Northern Ireland, was a significant step towards reconciliation and peace. However, the legacy of the partition and the deep-seated divisions it created continue to shape the political and social landscape of the island to this day. As the world looks on, the story of Ireland's partition and the resulting tensions between the Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland stands as a testament to the complexities of national identity, the power of political ideologies, and the enduring impact of historical events on the lives of ordinary people. In the years since the Good Friday Agreement, there have been renewed calls for a reunification of the island, with the Republic of Ireland and a growing number of Northern Irish citizens advocating for a border poll to determine the future of the region. This debate, which has been fueled by the United Kingdom's decision to leave the European Union, Brexit, and the resulting economic and political upheaval, has once again thrust the issue of Irish unification into the global spotlight. The potential reunification of Ireland is a complex and multifaceted issue, with arguments on both sides of the debate. Opponents of reunification argue that it would heal the historical wounds of partition, strengthen the cultural and economic ties between the two parts of the island, and provide a more unified and cohesive vision for Ireland's future. They point to the growing sentiment among the younger generation in Northern Ireland, many of whom have never known life without the partition, and who are increasingly open to the idea of a united Ireland. On the other hand, opponents of reunification, particularly the Unionist community in Northern Ireland, remain firmly committed to maintaining the region's ties with the United Kingdom. They fear that a unified Ireland would erode their political power, threaten their economic interests, and undermine their cultural and religious identities. For many Unionists, the partition of Ireland is a necessary safeguard against the perceived threat of Catholic nationalist dominance. The debate over Irish reunification is also complicated by the broader political and economic landscape. The United Kingdom's decision to leave the European Union and the resulting disruptions to trade, travel, and economic cooperation have heightened tensions and uncertainties across the island. The potential impact of a hard border between the Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland, should reunification not occur, has fueled concerns about the future stability and prosperity of the region. As the world watches and waits, the future of Ireland remains uncertain. But one thing is clear: the story of the partition and the division of the Emerald Isle is a complex and fascinating chapter in the history of a nation that has long captured the imagination of people around the world. The drama and emotion of this tale are palpable, as the Irish people have grappled with the legacy of partition for generations. The pain of division, the struggle for self-determination, and the yearning for unity are all woven into the fabric of Ireland's history. It is a story of resilience, of courage, and of the enduring power of national identity. Whether the island of Ireland will one day reunite, or whether the partition will continue to define the island's future, remains to be seen. But one thing is certain: the story of Ireland's partition will continue to captivate and inspire people around the world, serving as a testament to the complexities of human history and the enduring spirit of a people determined to shape their own destiny. As the debate over Irish reunification continues to simmer, it is important to consider the potential consequences and implications of such a momentous decision. The partition of Ireland has had a profound and lasting impact on the island's political, economic, and social fabric, and any move towards reunification would undoubtedly trigger a seismic shift in the region. One of the key arguments made by proponents of reunification is that it would heal the historical wounds of division and bring the island together under a unified banner. This sentiment is particularly strong among the younger generation in Northern Ireland, many of whom have never known life without the partition and are increasingly open to the idea of a united Ireland. The potential benefits of reunification are manifold. From an economic perspective, a unified Ireland could leverage its combined resources and expertise to become a more influential player on the global stage. The free flow of goods, services, and labor across the island could boost trade, investment, and economic growth, benefiting both the Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland. Additionally, a united Ireland could present a more cohesive and compelling voice on the international stage, particularly in the realm of diplomacy and foreign policy. As a single entity, the island could wield greater influence within the European Union and other global institutions, potentially strengthening its negotiating power and ability to shape regional and global agendas. Furthermore, the cultural and social benefits of reunification should not be overlooked. The division of Ireland has been a source of deep emotional pain for many, and the prospect of healing those wounds and restoring a sense of unity could have a profound impact on the island's collective psyche. The sharing of traditions, the celebration of a common heritage, and the fostering of a shared sense of purpose could help to bridge the divides that have persisted for generations. However, the path to reunification is not without its challenges and obstacles. The Unionist community in Northern Ireland, who have long been committed to maintaining the region's ties with the United Kingdom, remain firmly opposed to the idea of a united Ireland. For many Unionists, the partition is a necessary safeguard against the perceived threat of Catholic nationalist dominance, and they fear that reunification would erode their political power, threaten their economic interests, and undermine their cultural and religious identities. The logistical and practical challenges of reunification should also not be underestimated. The integration of two distinct political, legal, and administrative systems would be a complex and arduous process, requiring careful planning, negotiation, and compromise. The division of assets, the harmonization of policies and regulations, and the management of cross-border issues such as security, transportation, and healthcare would all need to be addressed. Moreover, the potential economic implications of reunification are a source of significant concern, particularly in the wake of the United Kingdom's decision to leave the European Union. The disruption to trade, investment, and economic cooperation caused by Brexit has heightened uncertainties and vulnerabilities across the island, and any move towards reunification would need to navigate these complex and rapidly evolving circumstances. The debate over Irish reunification has also been influenced by the broader geopolitical landscape. The shifting power dynamics within the European Union, the evolving relationship between the United Kingdom and its former territories, and the potential ramifications of global events on the region's stability and prosperity all have a bearing on the discussion. As the world watches this unfolding drama, it is clear that the story of Ireland's partition and the potential for reunification is one that continues to captivate and inspire. The deeply rooted emotions, the clashing ideologies, and the high stakes involved in this debate all contribute to its enduring appeal and significance. Ultimately, the decision of whether or not to pursue reunification rests in the hands of the people of Ireland, both in the Republic and in Northern Ireland. It is a decision that will shape the island's future for generations to come, and one that will undoubtedly be shaped by the lessons of the past. The partition of Ireland has been a defining chapter in the island's history, a complex and often painful legacy that has cast a long shadow over the lives of its people. But as the world evolves and new challenges emerge, the possibility of reunification offers a glimmer of hope, a chance to heal old wounds, to forge a new path, and to create a future that reflects the shared aspirations and values of the Irish people. Whether that future will be one of unity or continued division remains to be seen. But one thing is certain: the story of Ireland's partition and the potential for its reunification will continue to captivate and inspire, serving as a testament to the resilience, the determination, and the enduring spirit of a nation that has never ceased to dream of a brighter, more unified tomorrow.